Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I missed you. So the game I'm talking about in the video title is War Thunder. For those of you that are unfamiliar, it's a free-to-play, quote-unquote, MMO vehicle simulator that includes tanks, planes, and warships from the interwar period up to more or less the modern day. Naval starts around World War I. I have been playing this game for 9 years now, almost to the day. I booted up the game to record footage as like background footage for this video, but after these matches, I uninstalled the game. And honestly, I'm not sure if I'll re-download it. I've really just found myself playing it less and less, and for the past like 6 months now, I pretty much only load into the game when a new patch is released, test drive some of the vehicles, and then log off. So make no mistake, this isn't me rage quitting. I'm probably not going to immediately cave like a recovering addict. Maybe if conditions get a little better, I might reconsider, but at this rate, I really don't see Gaijin caring enough to make any sort of these changes. So first I'll give a little background about why I started playing War Thunder, what drew me to it, what I liked about it. Then I'll talk about where I think it's gone wrong and why I doubt these are changes that'll ever really be addressed. So I started playing War Thunder around summer of 2016, I think. I remember at that time, the big new vehicle that was being hyped up was the F9F8 Cougar, which the War Thunder wiki is telling me was around September 2016, so that tracks. I remember I was still in college, I hadn't started the new semester, and I got an ad or a video on my Instagram feed of a dogfight in a video game with the BF-109. And I looked at the comments to see what the game was, found out it was War Thunder, and immediately knew I needed this game. Now, at this time, I did not have a PC. I was using a MacBook Pro that I had gotten for college the previous year, so it couldn't run that many games, and I just kind of accepted that as the default. But to my surprise, War Thunder was supported on Mac OS, so I immediately downloaded it. It took forever to install on my parents' Wi-Fi, but once it did, I was immediately hooked. Growing up, my boyhood obsession was planes. You know how like every guy growing up had like some boyhood obsession. Like some had boats, trains, dinosaurs, space exploration, etc., etc. My brother's was monster trucks, and mine was planes. I played a ton of Ace Combat 5 and 0 for the PS2 growing up, as well as I had a copy of IL-2 Sturmovik that I had gotten at a Scholastic book fair. I tried to install it on my parents' computer, and it didn't really work. Once I was around 11 or 12 and I got pretty seriously into music, that spark kind of faded, and then once I started high school, I really didn't think about planes that much. But I downloaded War Thunder on this MacBook when I was 19, and we were so back. Like, we were back immediately. And that's the first thing about War Thunder that I really admired, you know. Despite playing on this Mac, which, you know, most of y'all know, it's not optimized for gaming, War Thunder just ran. Granted, it did not run well by any meaning of the word. I think I was making like 40 FPS on a very good day at ultra low quality, but it ran. And that's one thing at least at the time, I'll give credit to Gaijin where credit's due. War Thunder was very well optimized for all the platforms it was supported on. Now, I started out pretty much just playing air, going the usual route of playing an arcade for a bit. Then I made the switch to realistic. I think I had attempted simulator for a bit at one point, but I didn't have a flight stick and couldn't really figure out the mouse joystick for the life of me. So, yeah, the bulk of my playing was done in ARB. I was maining the US at this point. I dabbled a bit with Britain, Soviets, Germany, and then Italy when they were added. And once France was added, I started playing France as my main nation. I never looked back, though. through all the, you know, the nerfs, the over-tiering, and the insane repair costs that Gaijin had levied against French mains historically. It was around this time, I think 2019, that I started also playing ground. I dabbled in Navy a little bit earlier this year, but I didn't stick with it. So, to get back to the point of the video, another thing that drew me in early on that I really liked about War Thunder, what no other game really did before at that time, or even really since, was how modular everything is. You know, like in Ace Combat, for example, it's obviously very arcadey. Each plane gets a certain amount of hit points. You hit them anywhere, damage them enough, boom, you win. War Thunder's not like that, and that's something that I think is easy to take for granted. You know, you get hit in the wing, your wing takes damage, it affects your flight model. You get hit in the engine, your engine goes out. You get hit in the oil tank or the coolant tank, your engine will start to overheat. You start to lose power, your motor seizes. Besides IL-2 or like DCS, which is its whole own beast. I can't think of any other games that do it quite like War Thunder. So again, credit where credit's due. I'm no expert in computer science. I can't code or anything like that, but I would imagine that's exponentially more difficult and time-consuming as a game dev versus like a hit point system. And that's one thing I think Gaijin still does a pretty good job at, all things considered. I mean, the game is still modular like that. I'm honestly not a big historian in this regard. I'm not, in the archives looking at reports about armor thickness, materials, shell velocity, horsepower, shell penetration, all that stuff. I'm not like making bug reports, so I can't really speak on the accuracy there, and I've never really had much interest in doing so. Now with that, I do know that Gaijin is very inconsistent in regards to which sources they deem as legitimate and then which they dismiss as propaganda, and the reasoning for doing so and their transparency is dubious at best. I guess this could be like a minor reason why I've kind of seemed to fall out of War Thunder, but it's like maybe 1% at most. Another thing I really came to enjoy was that the gameplay, at least in the lower tiers, had a decent bit of variety, since a lot of planes have wildly different play styles. Some are good at turn fighting, some are better at energy trapping, some are better at straight boom and zoom tactics. The gameplay was at least dynamic enough to let you take advantage of these play styles. There were some maps that let ground attackers actually do their thing. There were naval maps for carrier aircraft, and hell, even strategic bombers could clutch the match for you, though. Yeah, for a while, those AI gunners on the bombers were absolutely broken. Now they're useless. Most of these maps that had unique quirks to them have since been removed. Now, yeah, a few of them were kind of busted and lopsided, but at this point, every match is the exact same team deathmatch, no variation. And it's been this way for at least a few years at this point. I don't remember exactly when I started noticing it. Now, when I first started playing War Thunder, the top tier aircraft at the time were the F-86 F-2 Sabre for the US, the MiG-17 for the Soviets, the CL-13 Sabre for Germany, and the Hawker Hunter for Britain. And for what it's worth, the learning curve wasn't that steep. I think the only time you'd really need to kind of relearn the game was when you got your first jet, but from there up to top tier, the skill set was more or less the same. And it was pretty balanced at top tier for what it's worth, and it was pretty engaging too. I don't want to sound like an old man yelling at a cloud, but it's really just, it's not like this anymore. I feel like at this point, top tier air is pretty much just a point and click adventure with Fox 3s and whatnot. Even the early jets are pretty bland since the battle ratings got so compressed. And I feel like that's something Gaijin only ever addresses like once every 2 years. And then they just raise the max battle rating by like 0.3 and maybe put 2 new planes at the max BR. Now, the main answer to absolutely despising the state of top tier air would be to simply not play top tier. And I don't really play it. I don't think I've played a top tier game since the Rafale was added, and even that was like 1 or 2 games. Now, and I am aware that the Rafale is consistently one of the better planes at top tier. Yes, it's probably a skill issue, but I just don't like the gameplay. But at this point, even the props feel like they've gotten stale, and Gaijin doesn't really care much about them since that's not where the money is. Strategic bombers are pretty much completely useless now, which especially sucks because of how iconic certain bombers like the B-17, the B-29, the B-24, Avro Lancaster, Tu-4, HU-111, G-4M, the list goes on, and they're just useless. You can, to be fair, you can play them in Sim, and for more or less the past year, the only regular playing I've been doing was in Sim with the flight stick and a VR headset, but I'm normally playing a fighter, and I'll get to why I had to stop that in a bit. But by bombers being absolutely useless outside of simulator battles, there's now practically no reason for Gaijin to add, say, the B-52, the Tu-95, the Avro Vulcan, these iconic Cold War bombers, because, like, what would they do? They did just add the B-66 for some reason, and they removed the literal one feature that would have made it cool, that like rear mounted radar to guide the tail gun. So GG, I guess that's dead on arrival because bomber mains have had it too good for too long. Now, side note, I have not played it, so I don't really know if it's good or not, but that's the general trend. Tanks are a bit of a different story for me. There was no point at which I enjoyed playing top tier ground. I grinded through the French tech tree all the way to the first Leclerc just to prove to myself that I could, and then I barely played it because I just never thought it was fun. Another point-and-click simulator, but I know a lot of people do really enjoy top-tier ground, so I'm not going to yuck anyone's yum here. If you like top-tier ground, hell yeah. I tend to pretty much completely stop having fun around 8-7 and have the most fun between 3-7 and 7-7, and credit where credit's due, I do think these BRs, especially 3-7 to 5-7, are extremely well-balanced and relatively enjoyable. Now, with that, I do have some complicated feelings on certain metas in ground RB, but I'll be honest, I don't really know how to express them coherently. But, like, the current meta of just, like, giant HE slingers and autocannon SPAAs being the best tank killers at their BR, that's weird, right? Like, I don't know how to express this, and this very well might just be me yapping about the good old days, but, like what's going on, you know? Anyway, don't want to harp on that point for too long since I don't have much of value to say, so I'll move on to more broader subjects to wrap this up. So, this channel initially started gaining a little bit of traction in 2023 when I made a couple videos talking about the review bombing incident that took place in the wake of Gaijin's planned economy changes and the subsequent fallout from that. Made a couple videos here that you can check out after this one. Gaijin then put out like their roadmap detailing how they were going to address the players' concerns with a detailed timeline with changes to the in-game economies, stock grinds, to grind through the trees in general, etc. They seem to deliver on like a few here and there, but overall I'd say they really came up short. And funnily enough, they had mentioned something about like free repair on stock tanks. I don't think that ever got implemented because they said it was too hard, so lol lamau. Now, I do know that some of the SL rewards, Silver Lion rewards, did get better, or at least you can't lose money from a game unless you team kill someone, I think. But past that, it just kind of feels the same. Granted, I haven't seriously grinded anything for a while, so maybe I just haven't noticed. But the few times I do actually try and grind towards something, it's just as frustrating and annoying as it was before. It's just as tedious. The trees take even longer to research now since they're even bigger. The last time I actually tried grinding something was in the British tech tree. I was grinding for the Falcon, I think at 8-3, using a 6-0 lineup and a 7-7 lineup. And it just feels like it felt like I was getting nowhere. Granted, I'm not an incredible player. If anything, I'd say I'm more or less average, maybe a bit above average given the vehicles I play, but I've never been a big stat card guy, so whatever, it doesn't matter. With that comes another point of contention I have with this game. Like I mentioned, I don't really care much for higher tiers, and it seems like Gaijin doesn't really care about the mid to lower tiers themselves because that's not where the money is. Why would they put their effort into a mid-tier tech tree vehicle when they could put that effort into $80 premium vehicles? Like, from a business perspective, that just makes sense, but it's so frustrating. I've never been one to just fiend for the new shiny vehicle every patch. For a long time, my main interest in new developments have been about more quality of life, gameplay focus, but it feels like nowadays, for the past year or so, any tech tree vehicle that's going to get added is just going to be a copy paste that goes to like almost every other nation. And with that also comes another problem. These tech trees just feel so bloated. Like, I know this is an issue that Gaijin has tried to address in the past, where the tech trees are just so massive and you end up grinding through more or less the same vehicles. It just gets monotonous. Some progress has been made here over the past 2 years. I know it's a bit hypocritical for me to complain about these mid-tiers not getting any attention and then immediately complain that there's too much in the tech tree, but like y'all get where I'm coming from. I hope I'm making sense here, but anyway, on to the next topic. So, I mentioned early on that one of the things that I admired most about the game was how well it was optimized, how it could run on a potato in some form or another. Well, times have changed since then. I built this PC in 2020, and while I didn't just get the cheapest, worst performing parts available, it's not like a pro gamer setup either. I used to have no problem running this game on high graphic settings, and I wouldn't struggle to get 60 frames per second. But it feels like over the last few years, every additional update has run worse and worse, and they're just an absolute buggy mess when they're released. Like when the Hornet Sting update was released in March of this year, I had told my friends that I play with that it was perhaps the worst update I had ever seen in my near decade of playing this game in terms of bugs and glitches and overall playability. Well, turns out that that was the worst update so far. The Leviathans update was released in June, and it somehow felt even worse. I haven't played a single game on this new update besides the footage you're seeing here, but when I first loaded in, I was making 20 frames per second. Granted, I wrote this script before I've recorded any gameplay, so maybe things have gotten better, but anyway. Again, I'm not playing on a pro gamer setup, but I'm not playing on a toaster either. It's just frustrating, and that's not to mention that I'm not even sure if the game is playable anymore on Mac. I remember seeing a few years ago, I think it was 2022, but I might be mistaken, that there was an update that completely broke the game for Mac players. I mean, textures were glitched to hell. It was unplayable. And I know the issue persisted for months. I don't remember hearing if it got fixed, but macOS is still listed as a supported system on War Thunder's website, so maybe I just wasn't paying attention. Hell, even recently I was getting a glitch where the sky turned black and the ground turned purple. And my graphics card is a bit old. I've been meaning to replace it, but everything's so damn expensive. I don't really feel like dropping several $100s on that. But even then, it works on like every other game I play. VR is even worse, but that's to be expected. I could never run this game at more than 40 frames per second in VR, but as of recent, with all the optimization issues I've mentioned, it's become impossible for me. It's never been consistent, but a lot of times I'd be looking forward to just being able to unwind on a weekend for an hour or two in an enduring confrontation lobby, only to be met with a stuttering 10 frames per second at the lowest graphic quality. But nowadays, VTOL VR seems to more or less scratch that itch for me, so at least I have an alternative. The last issue I wanted to mention, and I don't really know how this would be addressed, so I'm just going to make it a little blurb here, but like, the in-game chat has just gotten so toxic over the last year or two. Like, yeah, I get it. It's a video game with a lot of sweats. There's going to be a bunch of teenage edgelords in the chat, but like, man, I just don't like seeing a bunch of slurs every time I load into a match. And I know you can disable chat. I've seen a lot of YouTubers who'll do that, but then you can also miss out on like important information in the game from the few helpful teammates you might have. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on the matter. Now, don't take my word as gospel. If you still really enjoy the game, then keep playing it. Don't let my words discourage you. I kind of just wanted to make this video to yap, but anyways, like I said in the beginning of the video, after almost a decade, I just don't really seem to be having any fun at War Thunder anymore. And I would still say that by far, War Thunder has been my favorite video game, or at least the game that was my favorite for the longest time. Longer than Ace Combat, longer than Minecraft, longer than Yoshi's Island for the Game Boy Advance. It's been a good run. It really has. And also, as I mentioned, maybe I'll be back at some point, but it's not looking particularly likely, and I'm okay with that. Or at least I've come to terms with that. 9 years is a pretty damn good run, all things considered. But it's time to cut my losses and move on. Anyways, if any of y'all have stuck around to the end of this video, first of all, thank you. For those of you returning, it's been a hot minute since I made a video. I can attribute that to a multitude of reasons. I moved to a different state. I ran out of ideas since the first videos I made were on that War Thunder Revolution of 2023 and Gaijin's response to it. And then I had that one video blow up where I was doing an impression of Spookston, and like, I'm not gonna keep making videos like that. It was kind of a one-off thing. And just laziness, TBH. Plus, I've enjoyed streaming more as of recent, though I haven't really done much of that, and War Thunder is kind of a boring game to watch on stream anyway. But with that being said, like, comment, and subscribe as you please. Follow me on the other website. I'll put the link in the description and up on the screen. Obviously, wouldn't expect any War Thunder content from here on out, but I'd like to get back into making videos and streaming again, so if you want to join for the ride, by all means. So, that'll do it again. And something, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.